currently hiding from my family, so if you hear liar, liar in the background, that's the reason. But I wanted to get on here and talk about the Consumer Protection Agency and the fact that Donald Trump wants to extinguish it, and that it is extremely important that we fight to keep it. This article goes into pretty much all the information that we need to know. Trump's funding cuts put America's consumer watchdog on the brink of collapse. It goes into a story about a 33-year-old named Bianca Jones who wanted to buy a house and then realized that her Experian credit report had her student loans multiplied multiple times on it. And she wanted to get her student loans taken off so that she could buy a house. And not taken off, but the repeated student loans taken off. So she tried to write to Experian. She wrote them a formal letter. She did all the things that you're supposed to do to get Experian to take it off. But they wouldn't. They said this is how it is, and they wouldn't take it off, and she wasn't able to buy a house. Eventually, Jones complained to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a federal watchdog created by Congress in 2010 to protect consumers in their financial dealings. Her lawyers had to show a judge the lengths she'd gone to mitigate the damage to her credit, and according to her attorneys, the legal papers, and a copy of the complaint. She eventually got the extra student loans taken off of her Experian report, and she was able to buy a house. But now, under President Trump, because he doesn't like Elizabeth Warren and he fights for business and money instead of people, he wants to get rid of this bureau. He also said the Republicans and conservatives find it redundant because there are other ways to mitigate this, but it takes several bureaus to do so. The CFPB now faces extinction under the president, which says the agency is a political weapon for Democrats and a burden on free enterprise. So see, it's all about the money. And Elizabeth Warren, who this is kind of her pet project because prior to this, she was a professor who studied this the way that people are financially burdened. She says that this is not about vendettas. This is about enforcing the law as it's written so that billionaires and billionaire corporations don't cheat American families. And I think it's a pretty good thing. The agency is going to run out of money in early 2026, and they cannot legally seek more money until the Federal Reserve returns to what the administration deems profitability. So basically, they're just going to fall into extinction. Again, like I said, Warren was a law professor studying bankruptcy and saw that consumer protections were weak and fragmented, and that America needed a single federal agency dedicated to protecting consumers from unfair, deceptive, and abusive practices. That's why she fought for this Consumer Protection Agency. She said, "I was stunned by the number of people in financial trouble who had lost a job or got sick, but who also got cheated by one or more of their creditors," she told Reuters. For no agency was consumer protection a first priority. It was somewhere between 5th and 10th, which meant that there was no cop on the beat. But as I said, Republicans say the agency is redundant and that there are several other agencies that people can go to that eventually will lead to this result. And Republicans accuse the CFPB of the first CFPB director, a Democrat, of using their powers to crush small banks and businesses. Again, follow the money. And in 2020, the Supreme Court handed the president the power to fire the director, and he did. But Thomas Honig, who served as the vice chair of the FDIC, and a name that probably rings in your ear and that you know, said if you take them out of the picture altogether, you're going to get more abuse, not less, and he's disappointed to see the CFPB just go away. The article goes on about people like Jones who are struggling with credit reporter errors and are not able to buy homes. And if you look at what they've done to date, they've returned $21 billion to consumers. Again, like I said, it's a hodgepodge of legal entities that people would have to do to get to the final result that they get to now. And you can pause to read the article. This part just talks about another family, such as the family in the beginning, that had to deal with extenuating circumstances that led them to the CFPB. In my opinion, if we If we let the CFPB go by the wayside, we're letting the only protection that consumers have right now go by the wayside. And that is Trump's ultimate goal, to let consumer protections go away so that billionaires can take more advantage of us. We have to fight for this. I know it's stupid and redundant, but call your senators, call your congresspeople, and tell them that you don't want this to go by the wayside and that this is important to you.